Hey, podcast listeners. Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcast? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. Stay up to date on everything newsworthy by downloading the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free news. That's amazon.com/ad-free news to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything. I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames. And this is
A little bit culty.
Cults are commonplace now. From fandoms to fads, we're examining them all. We look at what happens when things that seem like a great thing at first go bad.
Every week, we chat with survivors, experts, and whistleblowers for real culty stories told directly by the people who lived through them, because we want you to learn a few things that we've had to learn the hard way.
For example, if you think you're too smart to get sucked into something culty, you might be prime recruitment material, and who knows, you could already be in a cult. If you're not aware of your programming, you're probably being programmed, so keep listening to find out.
We'll talk about all sorts of topics on the show, but be aware, this podcast might contain stories that could be alarming to some of our listeners, so please check our show notes for more detailed descriptions and take care of yourself.
Subscribe to our Patreon for Thursday bonus episodes, Q&A, and all sorts of exclusive content. That's patreon.com/a-little-bit-culty.
Welcome to Season 7 of A Little Bit Culty.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our episode with Bethany Joy Lenz, a.k.a. Joy. If you didn't listen to the first one, this one won't make sense. So go back, listen to the first one.
Do you think that being on One Tree Hill in some ways saved you from going deeper sooner? Or how, have you reflected on how that kind of kept you away from the worst of it? Or do you think how do you grapple with the two worlds and how that all happened?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it could go either way. It's one of those why questions that I don't know that I'll ever completely get an answer to, maybe in the afterlife, but I don't... I don't know if in this life I'm going to get a real actual answer to that. I think it could go either way. It could have been that it was great for me because it kept me in a place of still having access to a very grounded, real, genuine part of myself as I showed up on set every day and interacted with people and got to do the work that I love and access that part of my creativity. And I had an active way to exercise me, outside of this group, just me being me. But then I would go back to Idaho and then experience all of the things that I was trying to put on me and tell myself that that's what was true. So yeah, it could have really saved my life that it kept me, by the time I was ready to leave, I still had a whole backlog of experience that I had been living a very authentic version of myself while I was in North Carolina. But at the same time, it's that prolonged torture, the learned helplessness that I was going through intense trauma, and then I had a break and I was like, okay, wait, maybe I really am me. It's okay. I can learn, I can grow. Oh, I love feeling alive while I'm working. I love the people I'm working with. And then I go back to Idaho, experience more heavy trauma, but then I get a break. And so that creates this long-lasting trauma and PTSD, rather than if I had just been isolated in Idaho, maybe 3-4 years, I would have been like, you know what? I hate this. My life is miserable. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm out.
That's a good point.
So I really don't know.
So it delayed your awareness. Yeah, it delayed your awareness, it sounded like.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
Did you see it as I'm free and I'm going back to trauma? Was it that explicit in your own mind?
No. No, in fact, I started to really crave being in Idaho because a tree can only grow the fruit of that tree. So the narcissism can only breed narcissism. And so that's what we were all being taught to be little narcissists versions of ourselves, where I was so obsessed with my need to be told good and bad things about myself. I was so obsessed with my need to be that tight-knit in community where I felt like I had value, and looking for my value all the time from other people that were in that group, that I saw One Tree Hill as something that was taking me away from that. And I resented it many times. In retrospect, I'm really, really grateful for it. But yeah, at the time, there were many days, many years when I just hated being in North Carolina and wished that I could just go home and be a part of this community that was constantly feeding my ego. Whether it was a boost or a teardown, it didn't matter. It was all about me.
I'm thinking about the One Tree Hill experience. And first of all, I just have to say, like, I resent NXIVM because I didn't have time to watch television, and I wish that I had, because I would have loved it. In researching this, I was like, oh, that's totally my kind of show. So I'm sorry that I missed it.
No problem.
Glad I know you now. So that's cool.
Yes.
And we can do Hallmark together. But you touch on this a bit in your book about your castmates starting to whisper and kind of gossip. And did anyone ever, for those who haven't read the book, did anyone ever come right out and confront you?
Yeah, Craig Sheffer, who played Uncle Keith, he's one of the only people who probably could have done it, because he's just such a jovial guy and such a thoughtful, poetic, loving soul who doesn't want to hurt the air he breathes. We were sitting at a basketball game. We were filming a basketball game at Laney High School. And he was asking me all these questions about my family, and where I lived and what my life was like there. And finally, he just was like, you're in a cult, right? And he was so sweet. And I had a huge crush on him too. So I was just like, oh no, that's so silly. Of course not. Of course I'm not. And it made me kind of sad that people couldn't understand the concept of community living, like people who just really loved each other and were that willing to be that honest and real and raw with each other. And it's like, man, that's so sad that other people don't get to experience this level of emotional intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's so sad. But it didn't bump me at all. And I had other people, I think Paul Johansson probably said it too, but he also is like my mom in that way. Like, he'd move in a little and ask some questions and say a few things that if I bristled at all, he backed off. And I think that's probably what most people did. And I don't think they ever really got concerned until probably halfway through the show, maybe season 6 or 7, when my depression became really apparent. And I was just so unhappy, and I was gaining weight, and I was just always alone, always emotionally unpredictable. And I think then there were probably some meetings behind closed doors. I know there was one for sure, of people that were like, do we need to really worry about her? Like, I know she's in this little religious club, but like, this seems like it's getting pretty bad. What's going on?
Do you think there's anything that anyone could have said at that time when you look back?
No, because I didn't trust any of them.
Right. That's the tricky part.
Anything they would have said, I would have been like, you're not spiritual enough to understand. Like,
Right.
you don't have these spiritual eyes to be able to see like I do.
You don't know what I know. Been there?
Yeah. Oh God. The sense of superiority. Like, isn't that amazing how you could have such a sense of superiority while you also have such a deep sense of self-loathing and depression, and like how the mind can have those two things coexist is really incredible to me.
It is. There's actually studies on how it works. I mean, it's kind of identity politics. You see it right now. Like, there's a lot of that stuff they go on. If you identify with your belief system, you're in trouble in some shape or form. It may not manifest right away, but you'll look back. And I mean, I've looked back on things that I believed and just rolled my eyes. in addition to being in a cult, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, and in the last 5 years, I've been able to upgrade, or I don't even know if it's upgrading or downgrading. So it's difficult.
Only time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell.
It's interesting though, because how could you not identify with your belief system? Your beliefs,
Right.
like what you believe in is, I mean, if you're just picking and choosing random things to believe, then you're really just believing in yourself. I don't personally feel comfortable. I mean, I'm so flawed. I don't feel like I qualify to be to decide what's true and what's not true. Clearly I'm way too easily swayed. Like, I feel like there's got to be a real examination of belief systems and following those like there's got to be so much logic applied, so much willingness to really, really examine and find what belief system is going to produce the most love, the most compassion, and all of those things, all of those good things. But we have to identify with our beliefs. What else do we do?
There's power in I don't know.
Yeah. I guess there's the difference of having beliefs versus I am my beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think where the identification comes from. It's like I'm so in my beliefs that I can't even see that that's a separation. I'm a person with beliefs, like I'm a person carrying bags that are beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and you could put one down or pick another one up, which I think is
Well,
healthier.
if I show you information that your belief is not in reality, you don't have a problem with seeing that.
You can set that bag down and pick up a new.
You could exchange the bag.
And your pride isn't identified with, I need this to be right because I've doubled down on it so much.
Yes. That's well said. Yeah.
Well, it really comes down, I think, to your self-image, because then I'm like prideful about fortifying my self-image, and my belief system is what keeps it in place. And then if I find out I'm not who I think I am, it's when the shame comes in and all that stuff. So
yeah.
Someone said something interesting. People will forgive you for being wrong, but they're not going to forgive you for being right. This podcast wouldn't exist without our fantastic, supportive, generous patrons. Come find us over on Patreon. We're at patreon.com/alittlebitculty. Go there for bonus episodes, exclusive content, and the occasional Zoom with our fan favorites from our past episodes. Subscribe now and join us. That's patreon.com/alittlebitculty. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. Remember, when you support our sponsors, you support our podcast. So lately, Sarah and I have been hard at work writing our new book. My first, Sarah's second, as she likes to remind me. And we're on a pretty tight schedule, right, Sarah?
We are. We got a lot of writing to crank out. We're halfway through. We're getting there.
Everything's due ASAP, right?
Rush.
Go, as Sarah likes to say. We love the project, but with the podcast and parenting and sports and everything, keeping up with self-care routine has been, well, a struggle.
It's an ongoing struggle, an ongoing balance, dare I say. And that's why we are both taking Magnesium Breakthrough every night.
I steal Sarah's Magnesium Breakthrough. It's why my sleep has been a little bit better than yours, wouldn't you say?
I have to hide it in the back of my drawer because I'm trying to hoard it for myself.
I'm a bit of a bloodhound for magnesium.
But I'm the one that really, well, I guess we both have a fair bit of stress. And we have to be proactive about that.
In fact, magnesium is responsible for over 300 body reactions, and Magnesium Breakthrough is the only magnesium formula that delivers all 7 different forms of magnesium, each with its unique benefits. One of them being feeling more calm, Sarah, centered, and in control of our stress levels.
And don't think you're just going to walk into some random pharmacy and buy magnesium and think that you're getting the same thing. This is a far superior product, in our opinion. So we are now taking Magnesium Breakthrough every day to calm our respective nervous systems, mostly me. But since I've started, I've definitely noticed a significant improvement in my overall sense of well-being.
For me, I love it for sleep. If you're also trying to balance life's demands, give it a try. Trust me, your mind and your body will thank you for it.
So don't miss out on the most relaxing sleep ever with Magnesium Breakthrough. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/culty and use promo code culty10 during checkout to save 10%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you will also make sure that your monthly supply is guaranteed.
That's bioptimizers.com/culty and the promo code culty10 for better sleep and stress-free days. A Little Bit Culty is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs, creatives, even podcasters to stand out and succeed online. Whether your business is booming or you're just starting, Squarespace makes creating a site simple.
And listen, you don't have to be a coding genius to make something amazing. And I am certainly not a coding genius. Creating a beautiful, customized site just takes a few minutes and a couple of clicks.
And the features? Well, there are almost too many to explain.
Let's give them a few, though.
Okay. To start, there's Squarespace Blueprint AI. This tool helps you create a beautiful and intuitive website just by answering a few questions. No coding, no design abilities required. With just a few answers, you're a website designer. It's crazy. The future is here, and it's making very good websites.
If you'd showed me this in like 1990 when I was listening to a tape on a Walkman, I would have thought you were an alien.
Would you call me crazy, Sarah?
I would call you crazy.
I bet you would.
Plus, there are so many simple-to-use SEO tools. That is search engine optimization, for those of you who don't know.
You're a techie.
I know. And they do the heavy lifting so that people can find you online. Because if you're just making content, no one can find you. I mean, what's the point, right? It just saves you so much time and brings traffic to your website.
With all that extra time, you'll have a few moments to spare to set up payments. Squarespace makes it easy for you to get paid by your customers. Flexible payment options mean that visitors can make purchases using credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay.
Who doesn't like to get paid?
Duh.
So whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, all in one place, all on your terms.
Visit www.squarespace.com/culty and you can save 10% off your first website or domain. That's squarespace.com/culty.
Happy designing. You've heard from our sponsors. Now let's get back to a little bit culty, shall we? There were so many great moments in the book. I just loved it, as you probably know from how many times
by the way,
I messaged
really
you.
Good.
Yeah, it's just so good. Specifically, I think our audience is really going to just relish it because it's so hard to go back. Like I was really amazed with how you were able to recount so many things in that decade that you were, in the TV cult and the real cult and just like riding those two worlds, which is really fascinating, and specifically sort of the thought process, and your inner voice coming up and challenging things internally but not externally. Like it's just hard to get back to those points. So we're not going to go into all the details because we want people to read the book. But
yes,
whatever you feel comfortable with saying, like what the final straw was, that because obviously things got worse.
It was still a slow withdrawing. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a big blow up. It was a slow step-by-step realization. I think one of the first steps was when two of the group members who were married had been secretly visiting a different church, like Catholic church, for 2 years, and none of us had any idea. And it was like they had to do it in secret. They felt like they didn't want anyone to know, but they were exploring, as you said, Nippy, like the being able to get new information and go, okay, well, what we're doing right now doesn't necessarily feel like that is the whole picture based on new information I've received. So I want to check out how other people are doing this and feeling fulfilled. So they started visiting Catholic Church 2 years. Eventually they decided to become Greek Orthodox, and they left the group as a member of the church. So they were like, we're not going to still go to church with you guys, but we're all still friends. Like nothing's going to change. We just go to church somewhere else now. And I had no problem with it. It didn't even occur to me to have a problem with it. I was like, great, like that sounds fun for you guys. And the leader, Les, really threw a fit. And then the other two leaders also had a huge problem with it. And I kind of got sucked into their perspective for a few months, but it just wouldn't sit right with me. And I credit a lot of that to becoming a mother in that moment, because I had just become a mom. My daughter was months old. But I had gained this sense of, it's that mother's instincts, is the sense of like, there's this part of my life that I know no one can tell me how to do this. This has to be me relying on myself, on my relationship with God directly. My husband can't tell me how to mother. These people can't tell me how to mother. I can get advice, but this really requires me being in touch with my instinct, which is something that I had really pushed out the window for the last 10 years. So having this connection to my own instinct combined with seeing my good friends step away from the group, seeing how so much of the group was reacting to that, feeling like the reaction wasn't right, and then starting to question that. The more questions I brought out into the open, the more overt the opposition was to me from the leadership. And again, I was very, very on the surface, living in the place of my instincts because of being a mom. And I could see it. I don't know why I could see it then. It just, all the things aligned. And I started to see that something was off. And I stopped trusting less. I stopped trusting the leader as much. And then I started trusting him even less because he just seemed so emotional about things that were not a big deal and seemed so adamant about things that I thought were kind of gray areas. And I started to think for myself. And that happened for another few months.
Have you had the thought that that connection as a mother was your bio family, that you were replicating your bio family and your bio family actually helped you get your intuition back online?
Oh, because she was now my bio family, or that I was hers? Yeah.
But
probably.
Just ironic that he was trying to separate the bio family, and now your bio family was like, wait, bio family is actually really important.
Yeah, it's super relevant.
yeah.
You can't override nature.
Yeah. So the less I trusted him, the more I started to trust myself and my own instincts. And marriage was falling apart. The rest of the group was starting to fall apart because of a lot of fighting, there were a lot of little things that had been brewing that were finally coming to a head. And I detail in the book, one of them, there was a huge fight that broke out among the group at a softball game that we all...
That was the craziest. I texted Sarah. I was like, did you get to the softball game or volleyball? Was it volleyball? Softball game. I was like, what's that?
I know. That was one of the things in the vow. I remember watching you guys all playing sports, and I called a friend of mine who was in the group, the Emily character, and I was like, these guys all have the same playbook, like even team sports, like make sure everybody's playing team sports.
Yep.
So yeah, we had that. It was a softball game the guys always did for years, but yeah, everything blew up there. I mean, it was a full brawl, and I was just like, this shit is crazy. Like, what is going on? And then I could really see the people who were acting like everything was normal. And I'm going, no. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw crazy shit go down with my own eyes. You can't tell me I didn't see that. You can't tell me it wasn't bananas and crazy and people acting a fool. Like, I know what I saw. And there were enough moments of that happening over the course of probably 6 months that I finally got to the place where, after the separation in my marriage, and I started to see how everybody was behaving toward me, because I was still like, look, it's separated. I don't want to ask your family for advice for like a year. Let's just give it a break. But this is our family. These are our friends. This is our group, my tribe, blah, blah, blah. I was still there. And then once the marriage really fell apart, and I started to see people who'd been calling themselves my best friends for 10 years now showing up, flanking my ex for, exchanges, like custody exchanges, and watching them just try and intimidate me, and
amazing, right?
The anger that they felt toward me, and the way that I was just like, this is on another level. I don't know what is going on, but I got to get out. Yeah.
When did you go from this is toxic and I don't like it to this is a cult? Because your dad helped you with that, or had you put those pieces together? When did the cult word come into play?
I was sitting in a therapist's office and she said, "Are we ready to call it a cult?" I mean, that was just a flat out. She was like, we really need to like make some progress here. Can you call it what it was? And it made me really angry and really embarrassed and felt ashamed. And I was not ready to call it that because of all the things it must mean about me if I got involved in something like that. So I couldn't possibly admit it until it probably took me a few days. And then I was like, all right, well, I certainly can't grow if I'm not honest. So, and I started to become comfortable with the idea, but my dad, he's an incredibly intelligent man, had been a journalism teacher and a Bible teacher and history teacher, world history. And I always grew up with him challenging my brain all the time, car rides to school, sitting around the house over breakfast cereal, there was always some kind of critical thinking, problem solving question that he was putting to me to get those wheels in motion. And, it just goes to show you can be a really amazing critical thinker, but if you've got a gaping wound that needs to be filled by a community or whatever that childhood wound is, you'll push everything aside to be able to feel that thing that you feel like is going to fill that hole. Nevertheless, my dad was so smart and had been doing research for so long, and just showed up and was like, here's all the information I could find on Les, on his family, on his former churches, on people who he's sued, people that have sued him, people that have. There was a guy that was so upset by what he had done, he painted Les and his last name on is a false prophet on the side of a bus and drove it across the country.
Wow.
Like, people hate this man. And a lot of them were willing to talk about it. And my dad had found a lot. And it was really, really helpful for me as I proceeded into court.
Where did that end up? Did you ever get any of your millions of dollars back? Or did you just let it all go?
No, I have no idea. I mean, it could be buried in a hole in the ground. It could have all been spent. I really have no idea.
What about the woman who gambled your money? Did she ever give any money back?
No. She got a hug and then was hired to be somebody's assistant again at one point. It was all such a mess.
For more context on what brought us here, check out my memoir. It's called Scarred, the true story of how I escaped NXIVM, the cult that bound my life. I narrate the audio version, and it's also available on Amazon, Audible, and at most bookstores. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. And remember, when you support our sponsors, you're supporting this podcast.
A Little Bit Culty is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs, creatives, even podcasters to stand out and succeed online. Whether your business is booming or you're just starting, Squarespace makes creating a site simple.
And listen, you don't have to be a coding genius to make something amazing. And I am certainly not a coding genius. Creating a beautiful, customized site just takes a few minutes and a couple of clicks.
And the features? Well, there are almost too many to explain.
Let's give them a few, though.
Okay. To start, there's Squarespace Blueprint AI. This tool helps you create a beautiful and intuitive website just by answering a few questions. No coding, no design abilities required. With just a few answers, you're a website designer. It's crazy. The future is here, and it's making very good websites.
If you'd showed me this in 1990 when I was listening to a tape on a Walkman, I would have thought you were an alien.
Would you call me crazy, Sarah?
I would call you crazy.
I bet you would.
Plus, there are so many simple-to-use SEO tools. That is search engine optimization, for those of you who don't know.
You're a techie.
I know. And they do the heavy lifting so that people can find you online. Because if you're just making content, no one can find you. I mean, what's the point, right? It just saves you so much time and brings traffic to your website.
With all that extra time, you'll have a few moments to spare to set up payments. Squarespace makes it easy for you to get paid by your customers. Flexible payment options mean that visitors can make purchases using credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay.
Who doesn't like to get paid?
Duh.
So whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, all in one place, all on your terms.
Visit www.squarespace.com/culty and you can save 10% off your first website or domain. That's squarespace.com/culty.
Happy designing.
So lately, Sarah and I have been hard at work writing our new book. My first, Sarah's second, as she likes to remind me. And we're on a pretty tight schedule, right, Sarah?
We are. We got a lot of writing to crank out. We're halfway through. We're getting there.
Everything's due ASAP, right?
Rush, rush, rush.
Go, 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 as Sarah likes to say. We love the project, but with the podcast and parenting and sports and everything, keeping up with self-care routine has been, well, a struggle.
It's an ongoing struggle, an ongoing balance, dare I say. And that's why we are both taking Magnesium Breakthrough every night.
I steal Sarah's Magnesium Breakthrough. It's why my sleep has been a little bit better than yours, wouldn't you say?
I have to hide it in the back of my drawer because I'm trying to hoard it for myself.
I'm a bit of a bloodhound for magnesium.
But I'm the one that really, well, I guess we both have a fair bit of stress. And we have to be proactive about that.
In fact, magnesium is responsible for over 300 body reactions, and Magnesium Breakthrough is the only magnesium formula that delivers all 7 different forms of magnesium, each with its unique benefits. One of them being feeling more calm, Sarah, centered, and in control of our stress levels.
And don't think you're just going to walk into some random pharmacy and buy magnesium and think that you're getting the same thing. This is a far superior product, in our opinion. So we are now taking Magnesium Breakthrough every day to calm our respective nervous systems, mostly me. But since I've started, I've definitely noticed a significant improvement in my overall sense of well-being.
For me, I love it for sleep. If you're also trying to balance life's demands, give it a try. Trust me, your mind and your body will thank you for it.
So don't miss out on the most relaxing sleep ever with Magnesium Breakthrough. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/culty and use promo code culty10 during checkout to save 10%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you will also make sure that your monthly supply is guaranteed.
That's bioptimizers.com/culty and the promo code culty10 for better sleep and stress-free days. Break time's over, people. Let's get back to this episode of A Little Bit Culty. It's a good one.
That's so wild. And no judgment. We had some very similar things at NXIVM. People were dropping balls everywhere, and then they'd be like, yeah, we're growing humans, and that requires failure. So that's...
Yep.
Yeah, that's...
Except when it's
what you
you.
do.
When you drop the ball. Oh,
Well,
boy.
it's also similar. We found out how bad Keith was after the fact as well, which didn't help our shame.
All the stuff started to come untangled way afterward for you guys?
Mm-hmm. Yes. We watched The Vow and learned about him.
No.
After like episode 3 or 4, we were watching shit and going, huh?
Like,
that was going on?
When we blew the whistle, we knew what we knew, but there was so much more that we didn't know.
And then everyone, we were kind of the first people through the door, and then everyone started coming out, and I think that was similar in your situation.
Yeah, I have a feeling that that's probably the case in my situation as well. I mean, I think, I know there's a lot that I don't know. There were a lot of untethered trails that there was no way for me to follow, or the people would refuse to speak, but at the end of the day, it felt like I had a child to raise, and it wasn't my battle to fight. It was hard, which is hard. Like I don't want him to do that to anybody else, but I don't know.
Being public this way is part of the court thing, you know. Your lawyers were probably right. At that time, it would have been very hard to prove coercive control and manipulation.
Yeah.
Because it looks like you made choices. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't understand how you were manipulated into those choices. You don't really have a choice.
And there's a paper trail of your choices.
Yeah, but but you
they were smart.
But the book will help, I think. How did you decide to write the book, and how has that been for you?
It came up. I mean, I've always written chapters and songs and poems, and like writing about this has been a catharsis for me for a long time, but it always just ends up in a drawer. I wasn't necessarily trying to do anything with it. I just wanted to be able to harness my experience and do something with it that felt like it was out of my body and not just a big jumble inside my head. And then when the opportunity came up to write a book, it was literally a fan question on Drama Queens, my podcast, that somebody said, "Would you guys ever consider writing a book? Would any of you consider writing a book?" Because Hillary had written Rural Diaries, and so I think they were asking Sophia and I just kind of offhandedly, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was in a cult for 10 years. I sure would have a lot to say, but maybe one day I'll get around to it. But I had mentioned that I was in a cult before, and I had, there were places I had talked about that. So it didn't, the reason I said it that way was because I thought everyone had already heard it and it wasn't of any real interest. So I just kind of blurted it out, and it got picked up by every news media outlet around the world. It was unbelievable. And my manager's calling me like, you need to consider this. Okay. Yeah. And I wrote a book proposal, just like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it in a way that is most helpful. I'm not trying to get revenge on anyone. I'm past that point in my life. I'm not trying to enact justice. That's another song for another day. Like, I am just wanting to help people. And so how do I tell this story in a way that is respectful of my daughter, respectful of her father, respectful of the fact that there are so many people who were involved in this group who are still around today, and some of them haven't processed it. Like some of them still won't call it a cult. Like they just are like, it was just an unhealthy dynamic, and we're not in that anymore. And that's their journey. I'm not trying to like, for people who have experienced narcissistic abuse, I want this to help them. If you haven't experienced it, I want you to read this book and know how to not go through it by spotting signs ahead of time. And that's really my aim. So I did my best.
I think you did a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, and the day that the news outlets picked it up, we also got inundated because all of our audience was like, Bethany Joy Lenz is talking about you, A. And B, you have to have her on. I'm like, oh, I know. We are in touch.
It was like, me?
Yeah.
So that's so great about the book. And I can't wait to also, I'm going to re-listen to it because you narrate the Audible version, right?
Yes.
And like, obviously so cool because you have the skills to do that.
I hope so. I mean, there were like 12 people in a room talking to each other at the same time. So I really should have thought of that when I was writing the book.
Oh, I didn't even thought about that. All the voices. That's really hard. Did you have like different kind of voices or like intonations for Les?
Oh,
and like
yeah,
different
Pam is just such a she is so soft and gentle, and I just love when Pam talks because it is so welcoming. And Les has got this real Midwest vibe, and he just really wants everybody to know how humble and just like one of the guys, he's just so easy to listen to. I had fun with it. I mean,
great.
I tried not to do it in a way that would be distracting or weird, but, I wanted it to be enjoyable to listen to and not confusing. So,
we messaged a bit about this when your tour started. How has it been like on your mental health to like keep talking about it? Like, has it been cathartic? Is it draining? How are you doing?
I think about what you said, though, in our text exchange, which was, space it out. It's a lot when they're just one on top of the other. And so I've done that, which has really helped. I even still sometimes, though, like all week, I've had 2 or 3 a day, which I thought, I can handle that, like 2 in the morning and 1 later on in the afternoon. But I did that Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and by Wednesday, I was really exhausted. I've been okay. It's fine until suddenly it hits me. I think that's just my... I don't know if that's a trauma response. Yeah, like you just are like, no, it's good. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I need to cry, but nothing's wrong. But I don't know what to do. Yeah, so I'm navigating it day by day and just trying to really listen to myself and take care of myself too in the process. How was that for you guys? I mean, did you have a big press tour that you were constantly like having to space things out and cancel things because you were too exhausted, or what?
Yep. For my book tour, I actually had to cancel the Vancouver leg of it because I'd done New York and Toronto. And by the time I got to Vancouver, I actually was having, on top of the exhaustion and sort of PTSD of like the reliving it, I was having a reaction to a sleeping medication that I didn't know till later was messing me up. So I was actually like kind of unstable on top of it all, which was awful, and didn't figure that out till later. I actually thought I was having like a nervous breakdown versus like a medical, like chemical imbalance, which was really bad.
That's so, and then there's the feeling on top of that, I imagine, of like the whole point is that you're trying to show that you're sane and you're, this is like something that happened that you've come out of and you're healthy now. But if you still feel like you're loopy and like you can't go out there looking like you're not totally well.
Yeah, no, and I definitely was not well. And there's been different like kind of waves of it. There was like the first wave and there was like the New York Times and like that initial press. And then there was another wave of it when I did my book, and then another wave with HBO. So there's different stages of it. But I definitely have learned, even back then, like you said, I was happy to do as much as we could to get the word out and the message out. But then I was like, I can't do more than one a day.
Yeah.
Now I don't do more than one a week.
That's good. Yeah.
What is that main message for you? Like, since and it's so great that I know you have such a devoted audience from One Tree Hill. Like, how amazing that you have this platform and you can be like, hey guys, you should learn from this. Like, what's the main nugget you would say to your listener, your I hate to use the word followers, but
Yeah,
your,
yeah.
the people that look up to you and follow you on Instagram, let's say that, and they're going to read your book, and that's awesome. What's the main thing you want them to take away from it in terms of red flags and spotting things?
Examine your belief system. Like it's what we were talking about before, like be willing to be wrong. Look at the fruit of what it's producing in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your belief system about God. It could even just be what you're believing about the stories that you're telling yourself about certain relationships in your life that are producing I say bad fruit, or like bad patterns, or negative output, negative feelings. There's the things in your life where there's
Discord? No, that's not the word.
Yeah, discord's good. I like the places in your life where there's discord. Consider it. Like really think critically. Don't just go along with whatever you're being told. Like you have a brain. Spend time really examining things and be humble enough to admit where your own blind spots might be based on those childhood wounds, those needs that we have to fill. And be willing to admit that maybe some of the stories you're telling yourself or the beliefs that you've set up are just trying to make yourself feel better to fill a void rather than being actually true or helpful. I mean, it's a long-winded takeaway, but it's just be willing to examine, be really humble and willing to examine what you believe.
That's good advice.
I mean, that was what I was hoping by the end of the book, that people would recognize is this sense of, like we were talking about shame, that everybody's making mistakes all the time. We're all just human beings and we make mistakes, and it's okay. And the more that you hold on to the shame about the mistakes that you've made, the more it's going to isolate you, the less likely you are to become open-minded and loving and accepting and empathetic of other people and their mistakes. Like, let it go. You just have to keep letting it go. Let the shame go. It isn't your fault. And even if it is your fault, it's still okay.
Yeah, it's such a fine line between like, I participated in this because of this aspect of myself or my upbringing or whatever, versus I'm bad and it's my fault. Like, I'm the blame.
At worst, you were targeted.
Yeah, and that's another thing, to know these people seek out people like us with these open wounds and trying to fill it with community or meaning or purpose or God or success or whatever it is, that they're like, I have it. I know how to dangle it and offer it to you, and it's going to be so good.
Yeah. It's amazing how that works. But I totally agree.
I feel like we could talk for a long time. I'm also very aware of your schedule and wanting to make sure that you go for a long walk or have a hot bath or just take care of yourself. And I just want to thank you for your time. I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you too. I love the work that you're doing here, and I love the sense of hope that you have. Even just the title of your show, it's like keeping this sense of humor about it, that you can only have a sense of humor if you've let go of shame and if you feel hope.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it eats away at you. And so the fact that you're living from a place of lightheartedness, even though you can go to the heavy places, is so, so huge for the people in these communities that are getting out and need healing. And I'm really grateful that you're doing what you're doing. And I'm so glad that we're friends.
Same here.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for coming. I really hope our entire audience gets this book, reads this book, shares this book. It's so important. And I'm so excited that your audience now will feel hopefully less ashamed to admit where they've been duped or they've been caught up in something. Doesn't even have to be a cult, like you said, just something unhealthy, something toxic. It happens to everybody. And you're shining a light on it is such a gift. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Do you like what you hear on A Little Bit Culty? Then please do give us a rating, a review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or even better, share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're a little bit susceptible. Just share the love. Thanks. I don't think we could have asked for a better guest to kick off our new season. Thank you again to Bethany Joy Lenz for spending time with us and sharing her experience with us.
If you want to learn more, we encourage you to grab a copy of Joy's new book, Dinner for Vampires at your local bookstores.
If you're looking for more culty content, come join us on the Patreon. We are currently rewatching The Vow with a dear friend and talking to ex-NXIVM members who have never told their stories publicly before.
Yes, we are cold chilling over there on Patreon, so come join us.
Till next time.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean. I'm hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production, executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames, in collaboration with Amphibian Media. Our co-creator is Jess Tardy. Audio engineering by Red Cayman Studios, and our writing and research is done by Emma Deal and Kristen Reeder. Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslin.
Hey moms, looking for some lighthearted guidance on this crazy journey we call parenting?
Join me, Sabrina Kohlberg,
And me, Andy Mitchell, for Pop Culture Moms,
where each week we talk about what we're watching.
and examine our favorite pop culture moms up close to try to pick up some parenting hacks along the way.
Come laugh, learn, and grow with us as we look for the best tips.
And maybe a few what not to do's from our favorite fictional moms.
From Good Morning America and ABC Audio.
Pop Culture Moms. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.